begged my husband to forgive me for my one-night stand on our trip. He said he forgives me, but then I spent night with a random guy on our anniversary trip, and my husband flew back and left me. People of Reddit, I need your help. I've fucked up real bad, and it seems like there's no way to get out of this mess. If anyone has faced similar problems like me, help your girl out, please, as I don't know how to get out of this chaos. I, female, 35, and have been married to my husband, male, 37, for 3 years. My husband works in a software company while I'm an office clerk in a school. We have no children. Me and my husband met through Tinder. We matched with each other around 5 years ago. We started out casually dating each other and then got exclusive after some time when we realized we really liked each other. Our relationship was quite fun. After 2 years of dating, we tied the knot. We were already living together, so it had not been much of a change after marriage. I thought that everything was going to be fine in our marriage life as well, but I was wrong. After 2 years of marriage, we started having problems in our relationship. This was different from your usual couple's spat. These were serious problems. It started out with small things like I would get if he left his wet towel on the bed. He would get mad at me when I used to get home late from work. In the beginning, I thought that these fights were normal. All couples must go through things like this. But the real problem was how we didn't resolve these issues. They would pile up and become something really big. So, I remember one time my husband didn't come home till it was midnight. I was waiting for him with dinner. I called him up, but he didn't pick my call. I got really worried. Then when he came home after midnight, I asked him where he was and all. He just told me that some meeting ran late and he had dinner with his office colleagues. I told him that he could have informed me. I was waiting at home with dinner for him like an idiot. He told me he's sorry, but he didn't look sorry at all. He looked like he just wanted to end this conversation and go to bed. I got really upset and stopped talking to him. We didn't talk for a week. I thought that he would come to me and try to talk to me. But after 1 or 2 attempts to talk to me, those attempts weren't genuine at all. He stopped talking to me as well. He just told me that he'll be waiting for me when I'm ready to talk to him. The lack of effort from his side was really eating me up. I started talking to him again, but I was still upset, and this guy didn't even care about his wife. Initially, I suspected that maybe he was sleeping with someone else behind my back, but found nothing. He was just losing interest in this marriage. It was hard to digest because it was the same man who used to put a lot of effort just to be with me. When we were dating, he would come pick me up for dinner straight after coming from work, and now one call seemed too much hassle for him. I was getting tired of his shit. I didn't want this half-hearted relationship. We stopped getting intimate with each other as well. One day, I told him clearly over breakfast that there's no reason to be with me if he doesn't want me anymore. I can be out of his life for good. That finally got to him. He told me that he really loved me and apologized for hurting me. He said he will fix everything. I asked him how he was going to do that. We have stopped talking to each other properly. There was a lot of distance between us now, even though we were living under the same roof. He told me that we just needed some quality time together and that we would sort out everything. Our 3rd marriage anniversary was coming up soon. He insisted that we go on a trip on our anniversary. He said that it would be a way to celebrate the anniversary, and it would be also good if we spent the time away from all the responsibilities. I gave it a thought, and his words made sense. I felt the differences between us were coming because we stopped being a couple. Instead of spending quality time together, we were more concerned about other things. We stopped having romantic conversations with each other a while back. We used to just talk about things like electricity bills, groceries, and stuff like that. These were important stuff, but not more important than us. I thought that maybe time away from all these things would actually be good for us, like my husband had insisted. I told him that the trip sounded like a good idea. He seemed excited and told me to pick any place. He would book everything immediately. I smiled at him. It was the first genuine smile I had given him in months. The smile he gave me back was beautiful. He had stopped smiling at me like that. After a long time that day, I finally got some hope that everything wasn't as bad as I had thought and that we could still fix things between us. I was excited for this trip. I immediately started researching as to which place we should visit. I wanted this trip to go perfectly. After a lot of research, I had finally opted for Bali. We both were beach persons, and Bali had some of the most beautiful beaches. It seemed like the perfect option for both of us. I waited for my husband to get back from his work. Everything had taken an 180-degree turn. I was upset till the morning, and suddenly I was so excited. I asked my husband what he thinks of Bali. He seemed excited about the option too. He told me that he will get everything booked. After so many months, we finally got intimate with each other that night. It was like this problem phase of our relationship was going to get over soon. I started preparing for the trip. We were going to Bali for a week. Soon the day of the trip came and we left for Bali. Me and my husband both had taken leave from our work. We reached Bali. I was really tired as it was a 22-hour journey to get here. To my surprise, my husband had booked a suite for us in a very expensive resort in Ubud. I was very excited. We got intimate with each other. But soon, my husband was starting to lose his interest again. I asked him what's wrong and why he was being like this, but he shrugged it off. He said he was jet-lagged and needed some rest. I believed him because we had a long flight on our way there. We decided to get some rest and then to explore the places on the itinerary. I had done my research and had prepared a detailed itinerary so we could have a good time here. The next day we went to Lavina, which was a beach, and I had heard that it was beautiful. Our resort had arranged a taxi for our entire duration. We went to the beach, but my husband had started being the same way he was acting in the last few months. He was either looking on his phone or staying silent. It was like he was the least bit interested to be here. I tried to talk to him, but nothing. He only gave me vague or one-word responses. I thought that maybe he needed some time to settle here. We were here for a week, so maybe he will be fine in a day or two. We got back to our resort and he went to sleep saying that he has a headache. Another day passed like this. We were out exploring Bali, but my husband was the least bit interested in me or in Bali. We looked like two people stuck with each other on a vacation. Finally, the day of the anniversary came, but my husband's behavior didn't change at all. We were supposed to be strolling through Ubud itself. Ubud is famous for the arts and crafts in Bali. I had planned this thinking that my husband would love it. For as long as I knew him, he had always been interested in arts and crafts. If he went on any trip and found some crafts item, he always brought something back home. I had hoped that maybe exploring arts and craft would uplift his mood, but I was disappointed. There was no change in his mood. Instead of getting closer on this trip, we were getting more distanced. At this point, I couldn't remember the number of times I have asked him what's wrong since we have arrived in Bali. I had worn a very beautiful paisley dress. I had gotten this dress specifically to wear on our anniversary. My husband didn't even look at me for more than a few seconds, let alone talk about a compliment. I was feeling all sorts of emotions that day. I was hurt, dejected, and frustrated. I couldn't understand why my husband brought me here if he had no intention of talking to me or anything. He literally himself told me that we should come to Bali, and now he was acting all distant and shit. I was so hurt by his actions. I couldn't control my emotions anymore. I had enough of his nonsense. As soon as we got back to the suite, I asked him what the fuck was wrong with him. When he started giving me stupid excuses like he had done throughout the trip, I got really fucking pissed. I started shouting at him for taking me for granted. He got angry at me as well. He started telling me how nothing he did for me was enough. He took us to Bali on such short notice, and instead of appreciating him, I was shouting at him. We both were screaming at each other at this point. After some time, he left the room telling me that he needed some space. I didn't stop him. After he left, I laid down in the bed and tried to sleep. I twisted and turned many times trying to sleep but failed. Our fight from earlier kept replaying in my head. The more I thought about it, the more I cried. I gave up on sleeping after a while. My husband still wasn't back at the suite. I thought that it's better to go outside than sit in this gigantic room alone. I went to a bar nearby. We had checked out the resort's bar a few days earlier. I wanted to go to a different place tonight. I got dressed up, redid my makeup, and then went to the bar I had seen on passing earlier. The bar had a very cozy vibe going on. There were lots of couples dancing on the dance floor. Many couples were just making out on the floor. I went to the bar and ordered myself a gin and tonic. The drink helped me calm my nerves. I was so frustrated earlier, but it was good to be here. I ordered myself another drink when someone took the seat beside me. It was a foreigner just like us. He seemed a little bit older than me. I didn't pay much attention to him and started scrolling through Instagram on my phone. My drink came, and I finished it very quickly. The stranger beside me started speaking to me. He told me that I should try Iraq shots. He told me that it's a traditional Balinese liquor made from fermented white rice and coconut palm flowers. It sounded interesting, so I ordered that. My drink came and I knocked back a shot. It was quite hard. The shot had loosened me up. I started talking to that stranger after that. He introduced himself to me. He was also in Bali for a solo vacation. The way my husband has been throughout the trip, I felt like I'm on a solo vacation as well. I took more Eric shots as I laughed with that man on the bar. All thoughts of my husband were forgotten at this point. I don't know what came on me when I started kissing that man in the bar. I don't remember much details afterwards clearly, but I remember him asking I would like to go to his Airbnb with him. I vaguely remember that I said yes and we went to his villa. Even though I don't remember the details accurately, I remember going to his room and stripping my dress off. I wish I could forget that I slept with a stranger on my anniversary trip. I know I fucked up, but I don't know what came over me that night. The next morning, I was woken up from my sleep from loud knocks on the door. I was shocked when I saw that there was a stranger on the bed with me. The loud knocks, along with my hangover, felt like I'm gonna die. I opened the door after wearing my dress. I was so hungover I didn't check who was on the other side of the door. So I wasn't prepared when I saw my husband standing on the other side. His face was red with anger. I got so scared when I looked at him. He came inside the villa. He went to the bedroom then. He got even more angry when he saw a naked man in the bed. He started screaming at me for cheating on him. This woke up the man from the bar. He got confused as to what's happening. He got up and asked what's happening, but neither me nor my husband responded to him. My husband looked at me with so much anger that I didn't dare to meet his eye again. The man from the bar didn't get the hint and tried to come to my side. This move unleashed the anger my husband was holding. He punched the guy on his jaw. The guy moved backwards. My husband wasn't done yet, so he started hitting him again and screaming at him to not touch his wife. I was terrified, but I couldn't let this man get beaten up for something I should be blamed for. I went in the middle of them and pushed my husband off that guy. His anger only got increased by that. I told him we should leave from here and go to our resort. His eyes were filled with anger, but he agreed. We went back to the resort. The entire journey, my husband kept looking at me with so much hatred. I couldn't even bear it. As soon as they reached the resort, my husband shut the cab's door with such force that even the cab driver got scared. I went after him. I knew his anger was justifiable, but I didn't know what happened to me last night. I never felt so vulnerable earlier. I was begging my husband to listen to me in our room, but he didn't listen to any words I was saying. He started throwing things around. Everything that was placed on the shelf for decoration was now broken on the ground. My husband kept shouting as to how I could do this to him. His anger only increased as he looked at me. We got a call from the resort's reception desk asking if everything is all right. People staying near our room were worried. This calmed my husband down. He didn't like creating scenes. He stopped shouting and throwing stuff, but he didn't get calmed down either. He started packing his stuff. When I asked him what's he's doing, he told me that if he saw my face longer, he's going to kill me or kill that dude. He was leaving and going back. I begged him not to do this, but nothing fell in his ears. He was so consumed by his hatred for me that nothing mattered to him anymore. He left shortly after leaving me alone. He just told me that he doesn't want to see my face, so I shouldn't bother going back home. I spent the whole day crying, thinking and regretting what I had done. All the hope there was to sort out our relationship had been killed by me. I couldn't believe that our relationship was ruined, and it was me who ruined it. The hatred in my husband's eyes was killing me. After spending the whole day in bed crying, I decided that I should go back home as well. There was no point in me staying here alone. I called up the hotel desk and told them to arrange a flight ticket back home as soon as possible. I got in the airport the next day for my flight back home. The hotel staff had asked me if I was sure because urgent flight tickets were costing around more than 2,000 USD, and our room was already paid for the whole week. There were no refunds. I told them I was sure. There was no point in staying here alone. This trip had done the opposite of what I had expected. I was so screwed. It took more than 24 hours to get back home. The entire journey, I was so anxious and frustrated that I kept throwing up. I was mentally and physically tired when I got to the airport. Even though I wanted to go home and sort things out with my husband, I had no energy left for that. I took the easy way out and went to live with my parents instead. My parents lived in the same city, thank God for that. I thought that my husband had already told me to not come home, and I anyways didn't have the energy at that point to beg for his forgiveness. I couldn't forget how angry he looked in the resort. I thought the best option was to give him some time. I had planned on coming to the house after gaining some energy and thinking through as to what to tell him to pacify his anger. I went to my parents' house and slept through the entire first and second day. My health didn't improve here. I had frequent episodes of vomiting and nausea. After 2 days passed like this and nothing had helped, my mother suggested that it's best we went to a doctor. I agreed with her and went to our regular doctor. I told the doctor that I had fever and frequent episodes of vomiting. She asked me when was the last time I had my menstruation. Her question shocked me a bit. I hadn't even considered that I could be pregnant. I had a history of irregular menstrual cycles, so I didn't think about this. I shared all the details with the doctor and hoped for the best. She checked everything and then told me that I needed to get a pregnancy test done. She told me that I could either take one at home or they can do it at the hospitals. The ones at the hospital were more reliable. I thought that it's best to get it done here in the hospital only. I went to get my test done. I was so scared as I did everything the nurse told me to. Everything was going to get fucked up even more if this is that stranger's child. I was so drunk that I didn't even remember if I used a condom or not. I cannot even call him and ask. I knew nothing about him. My heartbeat went erratic as all these thoughts came to mind. How was I going to face my husband? I didn't have to wait much longer. The hospital had emailed my reports by that evening. I was pregnant. I was so shocked. I felt like my whole world was ending. I almost collapsed crying when I noticed something else on the report. I was 4 weeks pregnant. That means this is the child of my husband. The night he told me that we should go on a trip came rushing back to my memory. I had completely forgotten about that. I released a breath of relief. That was after a long time we had gotten intimate with each other. I was on birth control pills as we both didn't want a baby, but I must have forgotten it or something. It made sense now why I was so overly emotional during our trip. It was due to my pregnancy. Maybe he will forgive me now that we are going to become parents. I thought to myself and hoped for this as well. Having a child was a big thing. I hope that this news helps him to calm down his anger and we can move forward from my mistake. I kept hoping that he forgives me now. I didn't tell my parents about my pregnancy immediately. I thought it's only fair that my husband got to know first. I went to our house with my luggage in the evening. I was shocked when the door didn't open when I pressed the passcode. Has my husband changed the lock? Was my first thought. I immediately called him up, but his phone was busy. It was very unlike him to talk so much on calls and not call me back. I was confused. Had he blocked me? I was so confused. What am I going to do now? I kept thinking. After waiting for an hour outside our house for him to either pick up my call or to come home, I went back to my parents' house. I didn't have the energy to explain to them what had happened, so I just made some excuse that my husband had gone somewhere, so I didn't want to stay alone. I knew they didn't believe me. They decided not to question much and let me be the way I wanted to be. So yeah, that's all that has happened in the last few months of my life. I know this is not something usual, but it has happened to me, and I don't know what to do next. My husband won't even talk to me. I can't even go to my house, and I have a baby inside me. I don't even know what to tell my husband that will take his anger away. If anyone has any suggestions, please share. Thank you for listening till here. Update. It has been 4 months since I posted my story. Before I share with you all what happened after that, I'd like to thank all the kind people who commented and gave me support. I truly appreciate all of you. So the next morning after I came back to my parents' house again, I had an appointment with my gynac. I knew my husband would have gone to the office. He was that type of person who went to their office even with high fever. I thought that I would meet him first and then go to gynac. I was hoping that after I tell him that I'm pregnant, he will take me to the gynac himself. When I went to see my husband, he was still angry, even more than the last time I saw him. He wasn't shouting or anything, but the anger in his eyes gave me goosebumps. I was scared again. He took me to the side of his office floor and held me by my arms rather tightly. He asked me what I was doing here. I told him that I had come to meet him. He wasn't happy with my response. He told me that he hates me and that I should stay away from him. Even though I was hurt by his words, I managed to collect the courage to tell him the truth. I told him that I'm pregnant. What happened next still makes me want to cry. He laughed at me and told me that I should go to Bali and tell that bastard this. He thought the man from that night was the father of this child. Even though it hurts to hear this, I knew I deserved this. I told him that I was 4 weeks pregnant. You are the father. My words shocked him for a minute, but he quickly composed himself and then spoke words that hurted me even more. He told me that he didn't believe the words of a woman who could sleep with anyone. I started crying there and told him that I'm still his wife. He had to believe me. He kept laughing as my tears meant nothing to me. He told me that he made the mistake of marrying a characterless woman, and he was going to rectify his mistake. He told me that he was going to divorce me. I was pregnant with his child, and he was going to divorce me. I kept explaining to him that we are going to have a baby, and he cannot just divorce me like this. It wasn't fair to the child. I begged him to forgive my one mistake. We can move on from that, I told him. I told him that he cannot abandon his child. His words then broke me. He told me that he didn't care and that I could abort the child or do whatever I wanted. I don't give a flying fuck, he said with so much coldness that I stood there frozen. He then asked me to leave his office premises and never enter again. Before I left, he told me that his lawyers will soon contact me regarding the divorce process. I left his office in tears and then went to my gynac. She did my checkup and then gave me medicines. I asked her if I had consumed a lot of alcohol because I wasn't aware of the pregnancy. She said the baby was fine and to be careful from now onwards. I didn't ask my gynac about the abortion because I knew I wanted to have this child. I'm 35 years and my biological clock was ticking anyways. It didn't matter what my husband said in the morning. Once he calmed down, he would come back to me. I kept thinking to myself in the car from the gynac to my parents' house. I told my mother about my pregnancy and that me and my husband had gotten into a big fight. I asked her if I could stay here for a few more days. I knew ultimately I had to tell her everything, but there was still this hope that my husband would come and take me from here. I started going to work again. I kept calling my husband's phone multiple times a day, but it always came busy. He had blocked me for good. It had been more than a month and I was losing all hope till one day the call actually went through and he picked up my call. I burst into tears as soon as I heard his voice and told him how sorry I was, and if he just gave me one chance, I'll do everything to earn his forgiveness. He listened to me like he was actually considering it. He told me he isn't sure and doesn't know if he can trust me or not. Even though he wasn't saying anything nice, I still got a glimmer of hope at his words. This was the first time he had spoken so much to me. I told him that I'll earn his forgiveness and trust again. He didn't say anything much after that and hung up. That day after work, I went to his home instead of my parents'. I rang the doorbell. His car was in the parking lot, so I knew he was home. He opened the door, looking surprised to find me here. I went inside and then hugged him. He let me hug him. I started crying and he then calmed me down. I kept telling him how sorry I was and how I will fix everything. He listened to me and then kissed me. I kissed him back and then he took me to the bedroom. I went with him. We got intimate with each other that night. I thought that everything was going to be fine after that. The next morning he told me that I should get my luggage back home. I should be here so he can take care of me and the baby properly. His words made me emotional again. Everything was finally getting on track again. He went with me to my parents' house and then helped me in packing everything. We came back home after that. He helped in unpacking everything. I was so happy after such a long time. He started taking care of me. Every night he used to take me to bed with so much love and tenderness, and then we got intimate with each other. I was only 10 weeks pregnant, so it was completely safe as well. It had been 4 or 5 days since I had come back home when my husband said that we didn't get a chance to celebrate my pregnancy. I didn't understand what he was saying. He explained to me that in the earlier circumstance, we didn't get to properly celebrate my pregnancy. I agreed with him. It was quite a big chaos then. I suggested that we can go for dinner, but he said that he wanted to do something big since it was our first child. He decided that he'll throw a party this weekend to celebrate and announce to everyone properly that I'm pregnant. He told me that everything will be perfect and he'll arrange everything. I didn't have to worry about anything. True to his words, he managed everything. He handled the food and invited all our family and friends. I was quite excited about this party. It seemed like we were finally over the dark phase in our relationship. The day of the party came and I started feeling a bit anxious. I got the feeling that something was about to go wrong. I still got ready for the party and prayed that everything would go well. All the guests started arriving. Except for my parents, no one knew I was pregnant. My husband had said that he would announce it at the party only. He had told everyone that we were giving a party for our 3rd marriage anniversary. When I heard it, it brought back the bitter memory, but I let it go, thinking everything will be fine eventually. The party was going quite well. Everyone was laughing and enjoying themselves. My nerves were getting calmed down. I thought that I was just overthinking. I had just started enjoying it when everything fell apart. My husband called for everyone's attention as he had an announcement to make. I smiled at him thinking he would tell everyone that I'm pregnant, but his announcement took my breath again. He started his announcement by telling everyone how our actual anniversary was 2 months back. He told everyone how he had taken me to Bali for our anniversary trip. He told everyone about our anniversary. He told them how he came to the resort and found our suite empty, how he searched for me everywhere but couldn't find me. We both had shared our location with each other, and that helped him in finding me in an Airbnb far away with a random man. I kept my eyes shut as I listened to him telling my secret to everyone. There was no point in stopping anything now. There was pin-drop silence as my husband revealed my dirty secret in front of everyone I know. I couldn't see anyone's eyes after the truth was out, so I tried running away from the room, but my husband wouldn't let me. He held my hands and brought me to the center of our living room. He then laughed evilly and told me that he couldn't give me my anniversary trip in Bali, so he thought he'll give it to me today. He then gave me an envelope. I had no doubts about what was inside it. I ran to my bedroom after that and started crying a lot. My husband followed me there. I asked him why he had to do all this. He told me that he wanted revenge for what I had done to him. He told me that all the nights in the previous week we had spent in bed together were a part of his revenge plan. He wanted everyone to know what type of characterless person I was, and that's why he organized all this. I was truly heartbroken that night. I left his house and went to my parents' house. My mother opened the door and told me that my father doesn't want to see my face. She said it's best if I spent some time somewhere else. I managed to get a hotel room from the little savings I had. I lived in that hotel for quite a few days till I managed to get a small studio apartment for myself. I couldn't face anyone even in my workplace because everyone knows about my mistake I made in Bali. If it was some other situation, I would have left work. But I cannot afford to do so. It's not only me that I have to take care of, but I'm also going to have a child soon. My husband hasn't spoken to me since that night. All my communication through him has been through his lawyers. My divorce process with my husband is going on. It's taking some time as there are a few complications about me being pregnant and all. My husband had said that he does not want any parental rights or want to be associated with the baby in any way. There are separate legal issues going on as to how he doesn't want the burden of child allowances, and in return, he'll forsake his parental rights. We haven't spoken to each other after that night. All my communication through him has been through his lawyers. My father had not spoken to me after that day. He had said that because of me, he is shameful and cannot look at me without disgust. I stopped trying to contact him after that and neither visited their house again. The only person I try to contact is my husband. I told him that he can divorce me but to not abandon his child. I told his lawyers that the child is going to need their father, but they said my husband had told them clearly that he doesn't want anything to do with me or the child. The words hurt, but it didn't surprise me. After everything that has happened, this was quite expected of him. I'm currently 5 months pregnant. My bump has started showing. Everyone at work gives me looks, no doubt wondering whose child this is. It seems to everyone that I conceived this child in Bali since my husband is forsaking his parental rights. I don't know how to explain to everyone that this is the child of my husband only. I feel so confused right now and don't know what to do. I just hope that everything gets better, if not for me, then for this child. Sometimes it's better to start looking at someone's background before you get them into your life. I mean, they say intimacy is the most powerful thing that is shared by two people who love each other. So when someone shares their body with their partner, then they go outside their relationship and share their body and soul with another person. I don't understand it. So I, male 35, met my gorgeous wife, female 28, in Starbucks. She worked there. When I met her, I was late for work. I wanted a latte to go to start my busy morning. I walked in there and she was minding her own business, not taking care of her customers. I called out for her to get assistance as I was standing for almost 5 minutes not being assisted. Then she started speaking. Her voice was so calm and sweet, she explained herself and told me she was new there. We dated for 2 years and then I proposed to her. I couldn't wait any longer to make her my wife. She was what and who I needed in my life. So we decided to tie the knot 2 months after I had proposed to her. We moved to a lovely neighborhood in Hollywood after I had proposed to her. I wanted her to be a housewife. I was afforded and I was providing everything for her, so she didn't need to work at Starbucks anymore because I was already taking care of her in every way possible. As much as she had agreed to become a housewife, she asked me to allow her to start her own business that she was going to run at home. I didn't have any problem with that. She wanted to start an online boutique, so I supported her in her dreams. A year into our marriage, my life changed. I was always busy, but when I got time, I would spend it with my wife. She understood that I was a busy guy, and that was what I loved the most about her. As much as she stayed home all day, she knew how to keep herself busy. She would do workouts in the morning and yoga afterwards before she starts her day. We would never have serious arguments nor fight, but we would argue about small things like decision-making. I was the man of the house. My marriage has been good ever since we moved to this neighborhood on the north side of Hollywood. My neighbors were kind people and very humble, especially my next-door neighbor. I found out that he owned a gym that is around our neighborhood and his wife is a book writer. They were the ones who welcomed us when we first moved in, and that was how we got along. We grew to be good friends. My neighbor was the one who introduced us to other neighbors. We would have a neighborhood gathering twice a week called Wine Wednesday since I was always busy. I was always late, but my wife was always there. My neighbor was the one who hosted the gathering, so it was hard to say no. Sometimes I would not feel like it, but I had to show up for my wife's sake. As much as my neighbor and I were friends, well, that was what I thought. I had noticed that he had been a little close to my wife. I was not jealous or anything. Like I said, we grew to be good friends. They would work out at his gym and do yoga together. I thought that was the main reason why they were close. He also had a wife who was young and beautiful, but my wife was a dime, I had to say. He once came to fix my kitchen sink since it was leaking and I wasn't around, so my wife asked him to fix it. I got angry and asked her why she didn't call the plumber. She told me that I was overreacting and that the neighbor's wife was at the house, so she told her that the kitchen sink was leaking, meaning she was the one who asked her husband to fix it for us. She even told me that they were being friendly and helpful since I was always busy. Yeah, right, something wasn't right. The tone of her voice sounded like she was rehearsing to say this the whole day. I just collected myself and told her that next she should call the plumber. Was I exaggerating about this whole thing? Ever since that day, our relationship hasn't been the same, and I wondered why. We would talk and spend some time together like we would do, but that time something was different, I felt. I'm a man that has a good instinct, and I believed and trusted in my instincts, so if my conscious instinct told me that something was wrong, there was definitely something wrong. All of a sudden, she started buying new clothes and a new set of perfumes. She changed a lot to a point that every Wine Wednesday she would be wearing a different outfit dressed to impress with a red lipstick. I addressed the issue trying to trap her in a conversation, but she said she was trying something new since she was always home. I trusted her. I knew she wouldn't do me dirty. If I had a day off, I would go to the gym and work out with them, but every time when I joined them, it would get awkward. I got promoted at my job and I was made senior partner because of my work ethics. New position means a new schedule of back-to-back meetings, and also I started arriving late at home. I no longer went to the gathering like before as I was caught up at work. My life transformed and took another trajectory. My wife and I started to argue more often because I would sometimes not keep promises because I would forget. She no longer understood my work and she started being paranoid, suspecting me of cheating on her at work. I loved my wife very much to even think of that. Work was keeping me on my feet, so where would I have got time to cheat? I respected my job, my wife, and my colleagues, which was why I had never even shared a hug with them. I was always professional when it came to my job. That's when I started suspecting that my wife might be cheating on me. The sudden change I felt like I was being compared to. Well, time went by and I started to realize my wife was always on her phone, like she was waiting for someone to text back. Also, she started to work out twice a day in the morning and afternoon, which raised my suspicions. She then changed her diet, but she hasn't stopped dressing to impress. I wondered why the sudden change, because I had never complained about her weight or dressing code. Something was definitely going on. Was I also getting paranoid? Another thing I once caught was my neighbor staring at her. Well, she didn't notice that the neighbor was staring at her, but I ignored it. So one day I saw them talking to each other, but what caught my attention was their eye contact. I guess my wife didn't see me coming until she heard the neighbor greeting me. She got shocked and kind of panicked. Why would she be shocked and panicking if there was nothing going on between them? I then knew that I had to be a gentleman and not jump into drastic conclusions, meaning I had to address the issue in a right manner. So I did what every man who loved his wife would do. I told her that she should stop going to Wine Wednesday, which led to a very huge argument. I also wanted to cancel going to the neighbor's gym, but I didn't want to be seen as controlling, and I sensed that something was happening between those two. So I had to dig and start my own investigation to get to the bottom of everything. I mean, my guts were telling me that whatever I would find would not be good. It would have been silly if I sent a private investigator to monitor my wife's every move. So I had to play the long game so I could catch them by myself. So I started arriving home at different times. Some days I would just park 5 houses away from my house just to see who was visiting my wife. I was desperate and needed answers, but to my surprise I got nothing, meaning she played it safe around the neighborhood. I still had doubts. I knew something was up, so I decided to go to the gym one afternoon, and to my surprise my wife wasn't there, including my neighbor. So I rushed home and she wasn't there either. My mind started puzzling up as I was trying to figure out her whereabouts. I tried calling her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. That raised the suspicions that I had already had. It really made me angry that my wife would actually betray me like that. I mean, I trusted her. Yes, I was no longer giving her enough time and attention because of work, but that didn't mean she should get attention on another man's arms. Was I paranoid? The way my wife had changed, it made me doubt my decisions of making her my wife and moving to this neighborhood. I mean, it had been my dream to move to the north side of Hollywood, but I had never thought me moving to this side would actually change my wife. I had thought she was humble and quiet, but I had thought wrong. Another thing that I had noticed but never put my mind to was when I got home. She was no longer meeting me from my car to welcome me back home, like she would wait for me at the door and give me a kiss. She would prepare me a nice bath after work, then it would be followed by a mouth-watering dinner. I fell in love with her every day. I appreciated the way she was treating me and giving me respect as her man. But all that changed over time. In fact, it changed after attending a few Wine Wednesday gatherings. I trusted her, you know. I had thought that since she was coming from a good family with good life lessons, she would follow and take what she was taught with her. When we started getting along, she was so humble, so precious and innocent. She made me vow to myself to never hurt her fragile and innocent heart. She made me put my arrogant self aside and think like a real man. When I found Maureen, I saw that my previous lovers had nothing compared to her. Maureen was the full package of wife material. She brought the best out of me. She made me value time and give her attention she needed without even trying. One thing I appreciated and still appreciate about my ex-girlfriend was that she was never afraid to raise her concerns and had warned me so many times about my obsession with work. She told me that she was getting tired of having to wait for me every time when I had to chase the papers. She even told me her fears, expectations, and the type of man she wanted in her life. She was never afraid to tell you the truth, as it was just like Maureen, but Maureen never raised her concerns. She would just keep quiet and pretend like everything was fine when they were not. She preferred bottling things up in her chest and not sharing them with me as her partner. I know I was not a perfect husband, but I needed her to open up. Anyway, when I found out that she was not at home either, I called the neighbor's wife and asked if my wife was with her. I was getting worried, even though I knew that she was up to no good. So the neighbor's wife confirmed that Maureen was not with her. Then I decided that it was time I went to the FBI on my wife, because what she was doing was against the vows she had made to me and God. And the neighbor was also breaking his wife. It was an absolute disgusting abomination. So I waited until she came back, which she came back pretty late. I knew that she was with the neighbor because when I called the wife, she told me that she had gone home to visit her family. She came back looking drunk, greeted me, and went to our bedroom suite. She didn't even look me in the eyes or offer me a kiss. It was like she was guilty of something. So I decided to check her phone, and to my surprise, she had changed her passcodes, which raised eyebrows to me because she had never changed her passcodes. I mean, she was my wife, we trusted each other, meaning there should be no secrets between us. She knew my passcodes, even my bank pins. That was how much I trusted her. So I took it upon myself to find a way to throw away her phone because it showed that she was definitely hiding something, and I was yet to find out. I prayed that it wouldn't be something that would jeopardize our relationship and break our marriage. A month passed with her behaving like a teenager, sneaking in when I was asleep and going out when I was at work. So I called the CCTV company and asked them to connect the cameras around the house and put another one outside facing the neighbor's house. I knew it was creepy of me, but I had to find out what was happening in my house when I was at work. There is a proverb that says, "What happens in the dark always finds its way to the light." So what I was doing was putting what was happening in the dark to light. Smart, right? The following day, the IT guys came and did their job. My heart and conscience was happy that I would be able to discover the truth that my wife had been hiding. Nothing stays hidden forever anyway, so it was either I find it myself or get someone else to find it for me. But because I respected my wife and our marriage, I decided to dig the truth out for myself. To tell the truth, I was not ready to find out what I had found, but I had to know what my so-called wife was hiding from me. My palms would sweat, my heart beating out of my chest as I had to check the footage every time I got home from work. One thing I was grateful for with these cameras was that I was able to even watch what was happening in my house when I was at work. My wife's behavior really made me act like an obsessed psycho or a stalker. I didn't want to awaken the arrogant animal that was in me because if I did, I would have acted rashly and end up hurting Maureen for something I had no proof of. So I got home and went to my mini office. That day I had found Maureen at home. She even prepared dinner for us, which was very surprising because I don't know when last I had eaten dinner prepared by her. In my mind, the only thing that came was that she was home because the neighbor's wife was around. That was the only explanation I could come up with. So I watched the footage and saw that that day she was bored, as she was home the whole day. At the neighbor's house, I saw that the neighbor had gone with the wife, which explained why Maureen was indoors the whole day. You would see that the conversation I was trying to make was boring her, so I decided to drop a bomb at her just to see her reaction. I told her that I was ready to start my own family, as in having children with her. She choked on her food and told me that she was not ready for a child. I didn't understand why she was not ready to have a child because she was doing nothing rather than sitting at home, checking on her online boutique than nothing else. I asked why she was not ready to give me a child. She just told me that she still had a lot to do, and that a child was the last thing on her plan book. I knew that what she was saying was a lie. It's every woman's dream to have their own family. Well, not all women's dreams, but you know what I mean. I needed an heir to continue with my legacy. I was not getting any younger, so I needed to have a child that would carry on with my property business. As much as I was working under another real estate company, under another man, I still had another backup plan for future purposes. A few weeks later, I was still checking the footage every now and then. So as I was watching it, I saw my wife going inside the neighbor's house wearing her short silk gown. I got confused on why she would go to the neighbor's house with a short silk gown early in the morning because when I checked the time, it was not even 10 in the morning. Meaning I had been gone for an hour because I used to arrive at work around 8 in the morning. What I saw made me angry. I couldn't even concentrate at work because I was busy thinking about the footage. I was disappointed in my wife. One day I decided to confront her about the issue, so I asked what she was doing at a neighbor's house at 10 in the morning whenever the neighbor's wife was not around. She just busted on me and asked if I was accusing her of something. Her voice was of a guilty person and I knew that she was really hiding something. So I asked why she was being defensive because I was asking calmly and she just got worked up for no reason. She even got angry at the fact that I was spying on her. Who wouldn't spy on a wife that suddenly changed and started degrading herself? I had been saving the videos since I started watching them. I don't know why, but I felt like I would save them for future purposes. So as I continued following up on what was going on in my house, things didn't change, and the fact that my wife would wake up, take a bath, and go straight to the neighbor's house, either in her short silky nightdress or she would wear workout gears to make people think she was going to the gym. Have you ever regretted the day you and the person met? Yes, I regretted meeting my wife and falling in love with her. I regretted even getting her service at Starbucks. But I guess beauty and personality can be deceiving because what I would always look at when I was at work or came back from work was the total opposite of the Maureen that I had fallen in love with. She was a whole different person, the one I fell in love with. Always natural and always not afraid to embrace it, but now that the neighbor's wife was the person of class. My wife forgot who she was and started wanting what the neighbor's wife had. She even started wearing like her, all in the name of trying out new looks. Isn't that being greedy and selfish? What I lacked or didn't do that would make my wife resort to changing herself and not appreciate the life she had. Days turned to weeks and one thing was happening, but during one sunny day my neighbor would come to my house and they would end up having heated arguments. I wished I heard what they were arguing about because it looked really extreme. So that day I got back home early and I found my wife cooking. She looked happy for someone who had an argument with her cheating partner earlier. She offered to prepare me a bath. I thought I was losing my mind or seeing things. But that went on for like a month and the CCTV showed that she had changed her schedule of going to the neighbor's house. I mean, the guy was working from home, so there was no way he was not at the house, and because my wife was still going there and came back earlier than before, I thought they had broken things off and came back to their senses because my wife started spending less time at the neighbor's house till she totally stopped. She became the wife I had fallen in love with, a natural and respectful Marine, but my guts were telling me that all that she was doing was an act. She started engaging in intimacy with me. Well, I had missed her, so I played along. I somehow forgot that she was cheating on me with the neighbor. I was a fool, right? I just wanted and needed my wife back home to me, but when we got here, she saw the opportunity to change and not change for the better. Our intimate moments were on fire. She even started introducing some new intimate moves in our bedroom. She was kind of wild, and to my surprise, I liked it. So one weekend we were spending time together, I had noticed the changes in her body. She was getting chubbier. She would choose what to eat and not eat, and she started hating my cologne. She asked me to change it. I got worried about that sudden change. It didn't come to me that she was pregnant, so I asked if she was okay. She told me that she would be okay once I had stopped using the cologne that I was using. I then told her that I would take her to the doctor. She just flipped and told me that she was fine. She didn't need any doctor. I knew my wife was like the back of my hand, so I knew that something was definitely up, because she got angry for no reason and was constantly vomiting. Was I that ignorant to see the symptoms of pregnancy in her? I took some days off at work to take care of my sick wife. She would tell me that she was coming down with flu or she needed to reflux her digestive system. She said she was suspecting that she had bile. I mean, if you had bile and came down with flu, she would have agreed to go to the doctor and get medications for it, right? One day when she was sleeping, I was trying to clean up the house and it was the day of the garbage truck. So as I was getting rid of the garbage that was in our bedroom, I dropped something by mistake, and that something was actually a pregnancy test and a paper that was written safe abortion. I looked at my wife with a lot of disgust and disappointment. I knew that if she was pregnant with my child, she would have told me, and the pregnancy test was stating that she was 5 weeks, meaning she had gotten pregnant before she came back to her senses. I was angry at the fact that she had fooled me. She was going to plant the pregnancy on me and make me take responsibility for a child that was not mine because she had talked to me about her being ready to be a mother 2 weeks before I found out about the tests. I felt like the biggest fool because I was somehow happy at the fact that she was finally ready to carry my child, but she was already carrying one and it was not mine. I continued being the caring and loving husband, but I knew that I had to surprise both of them because the neighbor had made his wife a fool, and I was also made a fool by my wife. So one Wine Wednesday I went to attend it. That day my wife didn't make it, saying she was not feeling well, so I went alone. When I got there, the neighbor's wife welcomed me. We started talking about random things and told me that she was happy that she was finally pregnant after trying for almost 5 years with her husband. So the bastard had hit 2 birds with 1 stone, the nerve. I got livid to the point that I wanted to take at least a knife and cut off his private part because he didn't know how to keep it in his pants. Without acting rational and suspenseful, I told the wife that there was something that I had wanted to discuss with her. I had to lie and tell her that I needed her to write me a book about me and my achievements. I told her that it was time I take full responsibility and focus on my property business because it was also doing well, but I was still enjoying working at Prestige California Houses Agency. The neighbor's wife agreed to write me a book, so I asked her to come by to my office when she was free. Luckily, she had taken a leave of absence at her workplace, so she came to the office the following day. I asked her nicely that she shouldn't share what we were going to do with her husband because I didn't want my wife to know either, which she understood. So I woke up early and went to the office. The neighbor came to my house. He and my wife started arguing about something. As I was busy watching the neighbor's wife get in my office and apologize for being late due to traffic, I understood and we started working. I then gave her my laptop and asked her nicely not to panic and think of her unborn child. She got confused at first until she saw the video. What caught my attention was that the neighbor and my wife were no longer arguing, but they were doing the deed on my couches. I got pretty angry and didn't know what to do. I wanted to destroy something, but I had to act calm for the sake of my neighbor's wife and her unborn child. She was already crying a mess, and I felt bad because the guy was two-timing a good woman who did nothing but to love his cheating ass. Some guys are just ungrateful. I had to calm the neighbor's wife down and asked her to help me stop whatever that was happening in our houses. She was livid but managed to calm down after some time. We decided to head back home, so we rescheduled the meeting for another time. I told her that we would go to my house so we would find both of them. She agreed, and when we got there, I had a spare key with me, so I opened the door. As we got in the house, we found both the neighbor and my wife sleeping peacefully and cuddling on my couch. My heart dropped. I was mixed in emotions. I was angry, disappointed, hurt, and I don't know how I would put it, but I was not myself. I was brought back by the neighbor's wife, shouting at the neighbor. She started making noise and causing a scene. I understood her frustrations and hurt. She started hitting her husband with everything that she saw was in front of her. I looked at my wife with disappointed and hurt eyes. She couldn't even look at me in my eyes. I then went to my mini office to take out the pregnancy test that she had taken and took it with me where everyone was. I gave the neighbor the test and an abortion paper and told him to take responsibility for the mess he had created. But that didn't happen before I gave him a very mean punch. I didn't want to hit Maureen because of her condition, but I don't know what I would have done if she was not pregnant. I told to pack her rags and get out of my house. She started apologizing and telling me that it was a mistake. She got tempted because I was not always home, so she got lonely, and one thing led to another. I didn't care about her explanation, but I wanted her gone, and gone far away from me before I committed a homicide. I then called my lawyer and asked her to draft divorce papers for me. The neighbor's wife was crying so much to a point that she started getting pains. I saw blood going down her legs. I knew there and then that we had a problem. So I decided to rush her to the hospital and told Maureen that I didn't want to see her when I came back and threatened to assault her and her boyfriend if anything happened to the neighbor's wife. When we got to the hospital, we were told that she came in late and she had already lost a child. I don't know why I felt hurt, but I was hurt and felt guilty for her pain and sorrow. When I went back to the neighbor's house, I found my wife, Maureen, and her affair chilling in the sitting room at our neighbor's house. The nerve they had to not even think of Aisha, neighbor's wife. As much as I was angry at Maureen, I was also hurt, disappointed, and humiliated. But you know what angers me the most was that I asked what was going on between her and the neighbor, and she bluntly lied to me and said it was nothing. So that evening when I found them both in the neighbor's house, I confronted them well more like I asked what was going on between them. And guess what? My lovely and disloyal wife rushed to answer the question that I had asked. She had tried to deny that she and the neighbor were busy playing houses with Aisha's husband. I laid out the photographs and texts in front of her, her eyes filled with guilt and shame. She had broken down, begging for forgiveness, promising it would never happen again. But I couldn't bring myself to believe her, couldn't bear the thought of being with someone who had deceived me in such a cruel way. The moment he caught them together, everything inside him snapped. I was angry at the fact that both of them were lying to my face and in front of the evidence. That enraged me to a point that I lunged at Mike, wife's AP neighbor, fists clenched and rage burning in my eyes. Mike's face paled as he realized what was happening, but it was too late. My anger consumed me, to a point that it was even overpowering any sense of reason or logic. I unleashed my fury on Mike, each blow fueled by the betrayal I felt from both my wife and our supposed friend and neighbor. Mike tried to defend himself, but I was too far gone to care. I wanted to hurt him, to make him pay for what he had done. "Please, John, stop," Mike cried out, tears streaming down his face. Imagine a grown-ass man crying in front of his AP or girlfriend or whatever they call each other. But I couldn't hear him over the pounding of my own heart and the rush of adrenaline in my veins. I didn't want to stop. I wanted to keep going until the pain inside me matched the pain I felt in that moment. That time, Maureen stood frozen in shock, watching as I was attacking her lover with a ferocity she had never seen before. She tried to intervene, but I pushed her away, my focus solely on Mike. Finally, when I could no longer lift my arms, I collapsed to the ground, breathing heavily and shaking with emotion. Mike lay on the floor, bloodied and bruised, whimpering in pain. The room was filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the sound of heavy breathing and the occasional sob. As my rage began to fade, I felt a different kind of emptiness wash over me. The adrenaline that had fueled my fury was now gone, leaving behind a sense of loss and betrayal that cut deeper than any physical pain ever could. I looked up at Maureen, tears streaming down her face, and realized that she was no longer a factor in my life, and I had to let her go because she was no longer the person I fell in love with. All I saw was a witch who doesn't respect herself and her wedding vows. She had made a terrible mistake. The kind of mistake that is not easy to forget. At that moment, I knew that I had to make a choice. I couldn't let the anger and betrayal consume me, tearing apart everything I had held dear. Or I could try to find a way to forgive, to move past the pain and focus on myself and my job. It's not like I was the first person to be cheated on. It's part of life, right? As I looked down at Mike, still laying on the floor, I knew that I had to find a way to let go of the rage that had consumed him because they didn't deserve my energy and my rage. I'm sorry, Mike whispered. His voice was barely audible. I just spat at him and clicked my tongue before heading out. I had even forgotten that I had gone there to fetch Aisha's changing clothes, so before I left the house, I told Mike that his wife had lost her child and she needed clothes to change. Then I told Maureen that she should come to the house and collect all her belongings because I no longer want to see her. She tried begging me, but I just left. 2 months later, I had filed for divorce and I was focusing more on my work. I'm not ready to move on or start any relationship because I now have trust and anger issues, but therapy has been my friend so slowly but surely I was getting there. I made sure that Maureen left with nothing but the clothes that she came wearing. I donated her clothes to charity and closed all her cards. My life has been okay, no complaints. I do miss Maureen at times, but moments may be gone, but memories are always there, right? I have one problem, though. I do want to move on and go on dates, but the issues that I have are somehow stopping me. What should I do? Any advice?